Hey, David Brewster here with a new episode of Chordplay, and this is Erik Satie's Gymnopédie No.1 guitar workout. And this is actually one of my favorite things to do in music. Now, obviously, I'm a guitarist, and I love learning, guitar music that was performed and written, on a guitar. But I also love diving in and learning something from another instrument and adapting it and bringing it over to the guitar. And that includes piano and saxophone and violin, harmonica. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can kind of tackle. Cello and obviously piano and stuff. And piano is interesting because the range of a piano is greater than the guitar. So you have to kind of make some changes and adapt some things. And obviously, we have one fret hand and one picking or finger picking hand. And whereas on the piano, you have two hands attacking notes and the keys. So you do have to kind of fudge and change things a little bit sometimes when you bring it over to the guitar. But definitely this is eye-opening, very inspiring. A very famous piece. I think I originally heard this, like in an X-Files episode, also The Simpsons, and then I sought it out and wanted to learn how to play it. So if you've been kind of wanting to tap into some classical music and maybe adapting music from other instruments, this episode is totally for you. So the composer, Erik Satie, he's a French, composer and pianist and very respected, even though in his lifetime he wasn't very respected. But it's really interesting that in the modern world, his music has found an audience. And I looked him up, and like as far as like on IMDb, he has over 280 placements in film, television, video games, featuring some of his music. And the piece we're looking at in this episode is very well received and very famous. But there's a lot of other pieces, that he wrote that are equally as famous too. So definitely look it up, if you're kind of curious, like who is this guy? Where can I find his music? And it's really interesting, when you notice a musician or a composer. I mean, keep in mind, Erik died in 1925. So I wonder what he would think, about the fact that he's found a modern audience, in film and television and stuff. Whereas he didn't really find an audience in his lifetime. It came much later, which is so interesting. So there was an image that actually featured part of a chart, for the section of the song we're going to look at. And this piece actually has two sections. There's a major section, and then it shifts to a minor section, and then it repeats it again. Does the major, does the minor, and then it ends. So it's like 3.5 minutes long. We're only going to look at the major section of this piece. And keep in mind, it's actually played on piano originally, and I've adapted it to guitar here. So if that rang a bell as far as that opening, kind of sample of the piece, keep in mind, this has been featured in hundreds of different, placements, movies, television, video games. And here's an image with 18 places that you can actually hear this song in action, played on piano. But it's very interesting to notice, like different types of TV shows, different types of movies, and also video games too, right here. Alright, so let's dive in here. Actually, the opening of the song, it's just two chords, back and forth. It's very noticeable, very recognizable. And we're basically moving from G major 7 to D major 7 for this, first part. And who knew that major 7th chords could sound so dark and sad and dreary? Because usually people think of bright, happy, like springtime in the park, when you hear, major 7th chords. But here it's very dark and kind of ominous, which is deceptive and interesting. So we're in drop D, right? And I've seen, transcriptions of the song for guitar in standard tuning, which basically moved everything up a whole step, which in my mind, it doesn't really sound right when you play everything a whole step higher. I've also seen this, played in like open D tuning. I've seen it play with a capo and stuff. So to make it very simple and also match the original pitch, the recording, I just tuned to drop D. That way we only have to change one string. We don't have to grab a capo or do something weird. And, basically we're moving from G major 7 to D major 7, like I said. And, for that first chord, we're in drop D. There's a G major 7 right here, right? But take this higher D or G note right there on the D string. Let's take that, move your pinky and play that on the low E, because right now I'm drop D, now that's a G on the 5th fret, right? And that sounds kind of like the piano voicing, that low G note, and then that higher chord, partial chord, and then the same thing when it moves to that low D open, which is the low E tuned to D, then you're going to basically just do a first finger bar there on the 2nd fret. And there's D major 7 right there, right? So we started with this chord, but put that bass note down on the low E, like that. And then that's the G major 7, and then change to D major 7, and just go back and forth right there like that. Now this piece is very, very slow, which makes it a lot easier to kind of warm up to and start playing on guitar. You know, and this piece could be anything as far as adapting, you know, a classical piano piece to guitar. It could be violin, it could be Paganini or something, but keep in mind if you're grabbing Paganini and Bach and stuff like that, Mozart, it's going to be very hard, you know, to play. Something like this is much easier, it's slower, it's not flying by 100 miles an hour. So right there you can actually grab, you know, G major 7 and D7 or D major 7, you know, fairly easily, just like that. As far as those chords, we could play those chords anywhere. You could go way up here, like there's G major 7 and D major 7, right? But that doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound like the piece. You could also do something like, right? Just different versions of the same thing. You could also do something like finding different ways of playing those chords, G major 7 and D major 7. But I believe this is probably the closest you can match what the piano did, like that, and then that. Now after that, there's a melody that comes in, and you still hear those 2 chords, right? So the most important thing, aside from making sure the melody's right, is keeping that bass note active, right? You don't want to drop that bass note, and you're going to basically start juggling these melody notes. So the melody is, right? One more time. Starts on that F sharp, and you're going to basically kind of stick that melody in with those chords. So right here, you know, there's G major 7. You're already playing that F sharp, right? And then take that pinky and move from the low E to the high E and grab that A up there. And that's hard to do. That'll definitely wake your pinky up in the morning, you know, jumping from low E to high E like that. And then right there, the low E open with the G note there on the high E. And then you're going to basically bar that D major 7. And you're basically like playing part of the chord like that. Played the G with the low E, you played the top part of that D major 7, and then just the C sharp on the B string like that. So you're making that melody happen, but you're doing it like that. And then right here, that's where you got to go from that B note to that C sharp to that D, and I'm holding that G the whole time, right? And then right there, you're basically going from that to the low E open to that A note, and then the top part of that chord. And then after that, which that's the first part, like that. And then I hear this F sharp. So it's part of that you know, G major 7 chord, but it's emphasized. You can hear it. And then the same thing with that D major 7. Now the F sharp's right there. And you hear how strong that note is when you listen to it really carefully. And then it gets quieter again, so I just switch back to the first chord progression, like that. And then repeat that again. Right? So that's basically like the first part of that melody, right there. One mistake that I always make with this piece is I play it way too fast. It's very slow. That right there was way too fast. So it's more like, might actually still be too fast. Something like that. And then the change, right here, it's actually F sharp minor. But we're in drop D, right? So you can't play F sharp minor like that. You've actually got to grab, the F sharp on the low E like that. And then it's B minor, like the A and the high E together, and then the middle part. And then right here, it's E minor like that, just an E octave. And then the open G, open B. And then right there, keep the octave held down right there, and you're adding this B and that D note, and that changes it to an E minor 7. Like that. And then right there, it actually enters the minor kind of shift and change. So that's actually the end of my transcription, for this piece. So right there is the major section, then it shifts to the minor section, which unfortunately we're not going to look at that in this episode. I just wanted to keep it very simple. When it moves into that minor section, the tonalities and everything happening, it starts kind of moving around, and like these modal tonalities and stuff that's really interesting. And then it comes back to major again. Then it drifts back into minor, and then it ends. So it's like a 3.5 minute long piece. And we're just looking at that first section right there. But the important thing here is we're really just combining this. It's just simple chords, right? I mean, I guess to some viewers those might be exotic, but major 7th chord or major 7th chords are pretty basic and pretty common. So there's really nothing like overly exotic happening there, but it does grab you, and I recently posted this on Facebook, but music isn't about right or wrong. It's about feeling something. And I really believe that quote. It's a great one. And this piece makes me feel something. When I hear it like on a TV show or a commercial, or I'm just sitting here playing it, it takes me somewhere. Like maybe I'm sitting on a bench and it's raining and I'm sad or whatever. This melancholy kind of loss and sorrow kind of feeling, it really makes me feel, different emotions and different things. Just hearing those two simple chords. And then that simple melody comes in. Right there, when it gets to that E7, that's where it changes to the minor. And what I basically did there during the beginning, I basically threw out this D major 9 just to give it some sort of an ending. And what a great chord. I love throwing this D major 9 out anytime I'm in drop D like this, because that's the only time you can really play it, is if you're in drop D. But I just did, like that. Low E, high E together, and just arpeggiate the chord. Go backward, and then ascend and go up, like that. And that kind of matches the mood and tonality of this piece. A really dreary, kind of melancholy sound. So from here, you could definitely tackle the minor section of this piece. I highly recommend that. But like I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to keep this really simple and just focus on that major section, and then learning how to adapt, how to adapt that melody to those chords. And also during that other change, right there, when it goes to that F sharp minor, there's melody notes right there. That's C sharp to A, and then on that B minor, that F sharp to D right there. So there's, still melody notes kind of hiding in those chords there when it changes. And then right there, like E to that B, or and then that E to a D, like that. So it's interesting, to kind of tackle something like that. You're hearing that melody, and then figuring out a way to kind of make that happen on the guitar. All right, that's going to wrap this episode of Chord Play with this look at Erik Satie's Gymnopédie No.1 guitar workout. And this type of practice, I think, is very, very good. And there's nothing wrong with learning guitar licks from guitarists, but when you're basically challenging yourself and you have to start kind of using your imagination and visualize, like, well, all right, this is on a cello, or it's on a banjo, or it's on a kazoo, or whatever instrument it was played on. You know, like when you hear it and you're trying to figure out how to play it on guitar, you have to adapt it and kind of bring it over to this world, right? You know, the piano keyboard is very different when you apply it to the guitar fretboard or the violin neck or whatever. And it's very eye-opening, very inspiring. And I know whenever I've seen other guitarists and other musicians do something like this, like maybe it's Paul Gilbert and he's playing like a Haydn symphony or something, or it's Steve Vai literally playing Paganini in the Crossroads movie, or it could be, you know, like Van Halen doing Won't Get Fooled Again, like on Right Here, Right Now, like the live album, and Eddie's doing like the keyboard parts, you know, tapped and stuff. That kind of stuff really just blows me away. Where, yeah, it's cool to hear a guitarist play licks from another guitarist, but it's really cool to hear a guitarist play licks from a completely different instrument, violin or piano or whatever. Harmonica licks are really cool on guitar too. So anyway, hopefully this is going to open some doors and inspire you to check out this piece and maybe other classical pieces too. There's a whole world just waiting for you to explore. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.